Okay, my name is Jan. I'm product manager at Blockwallet, and my background is in cultural anthropology and cognitive science. And these two disciplines have taught me about what makes us all different and what makes us all the same. So I'm first going to talk about why and how everybody is different and how this can be taken advantage of online. So in essence, your online profile is composed of where you live, what your upbringing. So what makes us all different is where you live, what are your hobbies, what is your upbringing, what is your culture, what is your personality. And all these signals can be collected by online companies. And obviously, the prime suspect here is Google. And I'm sharing this URL because here anyone can check what kinds of information Google holds about you. And I'm going to share two examples. So first, this is their old UX, and this was like a huge list that you could scroll, and you would find interests that you didn't even realize that you had on this list, so it was kind of scary. And what they did next is they changed this UX a little bit, so it looks a little less intrusive. And this is actually my example from when I was buying winter tires for my car and from when I visited a perfume factory in France. So basically, what this means is that whenever you are searching for something, watching a video that relates to a product, whenever you visit a website that is related to something that someone wants to sell you, whenever you browse related stuff, these companies, so even companies that, so not just Google, even companies that use services supported by Google, they are able to research you and your peers, and they are able to segment you into groups. They're able to personalize the experience and the content that you receive. They're able to retarget you if you act in a favorable manner for them. And they are able to monitor your responses. And then basically what they do is they optimize, but what do they optimize? They optimize the experience for you, but they actually optimize you for their gain, right? And what we realized with Blockwallet is that privacy isn't an on and off thing, and we were able to hear this from the previous speakers. But we identified two sets of attributes that act in a diametrically opposed manner. So basically, the more aware you are of these privacy concerns and the more private you want to be on the web, the less convenient and the less relevant this content and experiences will be for you. So there's a trade-off, right? And we need to be aware of this. So diametrically opposed. So there's a really simple example. When I joined Blockwallet, I wanted to explore privacy a little bit more. And I tried Brave browsers, Brave search, and I tried searching for my local football club. And this is what I got. So it's not a relevant result for me, because it's a TV station that I don't even know, right? And this is Google's result, right? And usually I would get, like underneath this, I would get the latest results. I would get when their next fixture is, and it actually shows so it actually shows it in Slovenian, my native language, and it shows the location from where I was searching. So this is the trade-off between privacy and the relevancy and the convenience that you can have. And it's not just Web 2, unfortunately. There are already services or companies that are aggregating your data on Web 3, and they're able to do a profile. So this is one of my test accounts, and I just tested this product. And basically what it is able to build is based off of your activity on Web 3, on the blockchain. It's able to detect the assets that you use. It's able to detect which NFTs you own. It's able to create your DApp profile, as you can see. So what I use a little bit of gambling. I wasn't even aware of that. So there are ways to counteract this, as you probably know, because this is a privacy-focused conference. You can tighten your security settings. You can use separate browser profiles. You can separate your funds in order to avoid this. So next, I want to transition into the other aspect, and that is how we're all the same. It's very hard to act against your own human nature, right? And basically, your brain gets a lot of information from your surroundings, and what it does, it pre-processes all this information before it gets into your conscious. And what happens here is there might be slight distortions of reality. And they're called cognitive biases. There are other mechanisms, but I'm going to just talk about cognitive biases. And I guess everybody knows this icon. This is a famous story and product of when Facebook identified that if they create a delay between when your app loads up and between when you get the notification, it'll act on your gratification feedback loops, and it'll make you want to visit the website or the app more often because you get this delay, and every time you visit the app, you feel a sense of belonging because you're getting a notification. So that's one example of an evil practice of a huge company that is trying to exploit your human nature for their own gain. I'm going to talk about a few more cognitive biases. This is just like a short list and some of the stuff that I wanted to mention today. So the first bias is confirmation bias. Basically, people tend to look for information that will confirm their existing beliefs. So, for example, if you type, and I was using the same browser and everything here. So, for example, if you a fresh browser, but I used it for both the queries that I'm going to show you. So, if you type "is crypto a scam," you're very likely to get information that confirms this belief that you've just expressed. And on the flip side, if you search for why crypto is so great, you will again get information that supports this. Okay, so next up is another cognitive bias that I think everybody will be able to recognize. So it's a common UX component to build a big button. We call it call to action. And basically, the biggest button will always be the one that the company or the product that you're using wants you to click, right? And in this case, usually doesn't do what it says it will do. And I also have this example from a particular dog wallet that actually, so you have this option to turn on more privacy, but this visual anchor will actually call you to click what you didn't really set out to do, right? And then, like, to expand on this, this is a typical SAS pricing form, or however we want to call it, and it uses a bunch of these cognitive biases. So, for example, you have this big central anchor. There is a visual hierarchy. The central option is the one that they want you to choose. And I think the funny part here is that you actually have a decoy option that they don't really want you to click. It's just there so you can discard one of the options, and it makes your decision easier. Next cognitive bias that I want to mention is one that we struggle with at Blockwallet, and it's called social proof. And you get this in Web2 products. This is an example from Amazon. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And I'm sure a lot of you, like me, look at the reviews and the rating and try to make that decision easier for you. And they also have, this is also a social proof mechanism where they show you what other buyers like you were buying to make you make that decision a little bit easier. And again, I'm going to share an example of a wallet that everyone knows, and it's a social proof mechanism, and this is something that the users that we've interviewed have mentioned. So basically, when they're looking for a new app, they rely on this information. And it's sort of a vicious self-feeding cycle for us, because obviously from this theory, people are inclined to select the app or the product that is used by many other users. And I also added an example of a campaign that I think is very interesting and very successful, and it sort of also plays onto this human need to belong. And last but not least, I want to talk about the experience. And basically what I wanted to show with this slide is the familiarity bias that we have. So this is a challenge that we have as a wallet. And familiarity bias is just very simply the tendency to use and crave experience that you are at least a bit familiar with. So that's why we get this UX that is the same across the board, even across wallets that don't work on EVM. So it's very hard to innovate without freaking out your customers. And I want to share for the curious, I want to share this resource that lists a ton of cognitive biases, and it has definitions of these. And basically, you also can get examples of how to use them in your work for UX and how not to use them. So I ask you nicely, please use this resource responsibly, because if you don't, you will end up here, which is also a resource that shows examples of when products were trying to exploit UX in order to make you act in a certain way. And these are called dark patterns in software. I'm pretty sure some of you have already heard of this term. So I'm going to cap it off with a short, very short pitch about Blockwallet, and I also want to reveal a little bit about how our product works. So on one hand, we do not exploit your uniqueness because we don't collect any data. So our goal and our imperative is to build this universally accessible and useful wallet. And on the other hand, we do not exploit your human nature. So we don't use any of the stuff that I just mentioned in order to trick you into doing something particular. So our goal is to give you this freedom and the ease of use that everyone should have on Web3. So I'm going to cap it off here, and I thank you for your attention.
Are there any questions for Jan? No questions for Jan?
Oh,
then we
sorry.
continue.
Did you use any of the biases that you mentioned in your slide?
Sorry, what?
Did you use any of the biases that you mentioned in your slides to attract customers?
So in our wallet, yes. So this is a thing that I didn't want to expand too far, but actually these cognitive biases are a key component of designing friendly user experiences. So you can use them in malicious ways to make people do something that you want, but they're, on the other hand, and on the positive end, they need to be used in order to create an experience that makes sense to the user, right? So you can tell them, let me just go back really quickly to this example. So for example, right, you know that the user has expressed their wish to turn analytics off. So you could just make it easier by highlighting the button that does that, right? So that's a good UX, and that's a good use of the cognitive bias. Thank you for the question. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much.